Something is different about today, not in a quiet, subtle way, in an electric way. The kind of different you notice before you can explain it, before you've checked your phone or looked at the news or had a single conversation. You woke up and the air had a charge in it. And maybe you assumed it was you, something in your own system activating, some internal shift you couldn't account for. But it wasn't just you. Today, February 23rd, Mars moved into Aquarius, and that single ingress completed something that doesn't happen often. The Sun is in Aquarius, Mercury is in Aquarius, Venus is in Aquarius, and now Mars, the planet of will and direction and the part of us that reaches toward what we actually want, walk through that door too. 4 planets, 1 sign, a stellium. A gathering of this magnitude creates a field that you feel in your chest before astrology explains it to your mind. This isn't the kind of cosmic energy that hums quietly in the background. This is concentrated, directed. 4 planetary voices speaking in the same key at the same time. And for twin flame connections specifically, where so much happens in the energetic field between 2 people before anything happens in the physical world, this kind of concentrated Aquarian frequency is significant. Not because Aquarius is a romantic sign in the traditional sense, because Aquarius rules the collective consciousness, the invisible architecture of how we're connected across distance, the part of love that doesn't require proximity to be real. If you've been feeling something today that's more charged than usual, less soft than the longing you've been living in, something with a current and almost a direction to it, that's what you're picking up. That's real. That's 4 planets speaking in unison about your connection, about the timeline you're in, and about what is being asked of you right now. If this is already landing somewhere specific in your body, leave a like and subscribe so you stay connected through this Aquarius stellium energy. Leave "I feel the gathering" in the comments, because that's what's happening. Something is gathering, and your connection is at the center of it. The stellium formed gradually. Venus entered Aquarius first, pulling the love frequency out of Pisces and into something more clear-eyed, more electrically alive. Mercury followed, shifting communication and thought into the collective frequency, the kind of thinking that spans distance and operates through synchronicities and sudden knowing. The Sun moved through, bringing identity and visibility into that same field. And today, Mars completes the picture. Mars is the piece that makes this gathering mean something beyond feeling. Mars gives it a spine, a direction, a charge that moves. 4 planets in Aquarius is not an invitation to feel more. It's an invitation to do something with what you already feel, and that's the fundamental shift of today. The conjunction that just happened 3 days ago, Saturn meeting Neptune for the first time in 165 years, cracked something open at the structural level. It asked what is real enough to build. It dissolved old forms that were no longer true. But that conjunction was water in its essence, a meeting of Neptune's dissolution and Saturn's solidity. This stellium, especially with Mars now present, is lightning. Different quality entirely. Not dissolving, not building, but activating. Energizing what was revealed in the dissolution. Charging what was clarified in the conjunction. If the last 3 days showed you something true about your connection, today is when your whole system begins to metabolize that truth and turn it into motion. The quality of Mars in Aquarius is specific and worth understanding because it's not the same as Mars in any other sign. Mars in fire signs is raw, instinctive, driven by heat. Mars in earth signs is patient, strategic, outcome-focused. Mars in Aquarius is something else. It's directed by principle, by something it sees from a high vantage point. Not just what it wants in this moment, but what it knows is true from a broader view. Mars in Aquarius acts with intention, sometimes even with a kind of calm precision, because the drive isn't coming from urgency or need. It's coming from clarity. And that specific quality, Mars driven by clarity rather than urgency, is the energy available to you in this connection right now. The anxious reaching, the urgency-driven checking, the action that comes from pain rather than knowing. Mars in Aquarius doesn't recognize that as motion. It sees it as static. The action available under this transit is the kind that comes from having already answered the internal question, from knowing what's true and moving from that knowing rather than toward the resolution of a question that's still open. This is an important distinction for where you are in this journey. And it's exactly what the stellium, this gathering of 4 planetary voices in one frequency, is asking you to embody. In astrology, Aquarius rules what's sometimes called the 11th house of collective belonging, but the deeper meaning is something more precise. Aquarius rules the invisible threads, the ways we're connected that don't require physical presence, that operate across distances and silences, and even the kind of separation where no communication has passed between 2 people in months. Aquarius understands that connection is not a function of proximity, it's a function of resonance. 4 planets in Aquarius means that right now, the dominant frequency in the collective field, the one that's being broadcast at the loudest volume, is this principle. What connects you doesn't require you to be together to be real. This matters enormously for twin flame connections, because one of the most exhausting cognitive battles in separation is the one where you know the connection is real, you can feel it, you have evidence in dreams and synchronicities and the inexplicable way your body registers something happening with him across distance, but the mind keeps trying to dismiss it, keeps demanding proof in a format it can hold and verify, keeps telling you that feeling isn't evidence, that knowing isn't data, that the certainty you carry must be delusion because you can't point to it on a map. The Aquarius stellium, particularly with Mercury in this sign governing thought and communication, is amplifying the frequency of that invisible knowing. The channel between you is not quieter right now. It's louder, more available. The signal you've been receiving is stronger, not weaker, regardless of what the 3-dimensional reality looks like. This doesn't mean union is imminent in the sense of him appearing on your doorstep. What it means is that the field between you is particularly alive and responsive right now. What you hold in your energy, what frequency you're broadcasting, is reaching him with unusual clarity. 4 planets broadcasting in Aquarius means the collective field is currently saturated with the principle of connection across distance. And if your connection is real, if there is genuine soul recognition between you, that field is carrying your energy directly into his awareness, whether or not he has any conscious understanding of why he's suddenly thinking about you, why something about you won't leave his peripheral vision, why a song plays and his chest does something specific that he can't quite name. This is not wishful thinking. This is how energetic fields actually function. And the stellium is a megaphone for that function. The question the stellium puts to you is direct. What are you broadcasting? Because right now, whatever frequency you're holding in your own system is not just something you feel. It's something that's moving through that amplified field and reaching him. The charge you feel in the air today isn't separate from your connection. It's inside it. You've been in a long period of feeling. That's not a criticism. The feeling phase is necessary. You can't skip it. It's where the real transformation happens. In the quiet, private interior work that nobody sees but that fundamentally changes the person doing it. You've done that work. You've felt the grief and the confusion and the longing and the anger and the disorientation of loving someone who isn't here. You've done the processing. You've done the internal examination. You've probably done it more thoroughly than anyone in your physical life would believe if you tried to explain it. That there's a particular quality that can settle in after a long period of feeling, and it deserves honest examination. It's the state where feeling has become the activity, where the processing has become the work in itself, and not the preparation for anything beyond itself. Where you've built a kind of fluency in your own pain that keeps you intimate with it longer than it actually needs to stay. Mars entering Aquarius today, completing this stellium, is asking a specific question. Not a harsh question, not a judgment, but a direct one. Is the feeling still teaching you something new, or has it become the place you live? That distinction is significant, because the woman who is actively being transformed by her feeling is radiating a completely different frequency than the woman who has made her pain her home. Both are suffering. but one is in motion even if the motion is invisible. The other has, without quite meaning to, made the pain a fixed point to organize around. The Aquarius frequency doesn't resonate with fixed points. Aquarius is current, it moves, it connects across distances. It lives in the space between, in the electrical charge of what's possible rather than the gravity of what was. Mars in Aquarius specifically activates the capacity to want with direction, to know what you want and orient toward it with your actual self, not just with your longing. There's a difference between wanting someone and orienting toward the life that includes them. One is a feeling you have about the past and the future. The other is a way of holding yourself in the present. What Mars is inviting you into today is not urgency. It's not reaching out, not action in the external sense. It's the internal activation of the self who is genuinely moving, who has somewhere to go, who has a life she is actually building and not just holding in suspension while she waits to see how this other thing resolves. That version of you is magnetic in a way that the waiting version is not. Not because magnetism is a strategy, but because a person who is genuinely in motion, who has a center of gravity that belongs to herself rather than to the outcome of a connection, broadcasts a frequency that draws, that pulls, not toward the pain but toward the aliveness. The gathering of these four planets is asking you to bring that version of yourself into the field, not to perform her, not to fake the groundedness you haven't built, but to take one actual step toward her today. One thing that is genuinely yours. One action that belongs to your life and not to the management of waiting. Mars in Aquarius knows the difference, and so does he, at the level where his system is reading yours across distance. There is something happening for him today that he doesn't have language for. He may not even be aware of it consciously. But if you've ever felt the twin flame connection as a current that moves between two people regardless of what's happening on the surface, then trust that what's active in the field today is active for both of you. The Aquarius stellium creates what could be described as a frequency spike in the collective consciousness. And for two people who share the specific kind of soul resonance that exists in a twin flame dynamic, a frequency spike in the collective field doesn't just create a vague sense of unease or agitation. It creates directed awareness. His attention is moving toward you, not necessarily with the story around it, not necessarily with, I'm thinking about her and this means something, but at the level beneath that, the level where the body knows things the conscious mind hasn't caught up with yet. He's tracking you. The state he's in right now, under this particular sky, is one of the more uncomfortable states the divine masculine experiences in this journey. Cognitive dissonance at a level that his normal coping mechanisms can't smooth over. Cognitive dissonance is the experience of holding two contradictory beliefs simultaneously, and the psychological discomfort that creates. For him, the dissonance has a specific shape. On one hand, there's the architecture he's built to explain this connection to himself in a way that doesn't require him to be vulnerable. The story that this was just chemistry or timing or that you want different things, or that he's not ready and won't be, or that what he felt wasn't as significant as it seemed. The story that keeps him at a manageable distance from the enormity of what's actually between you. On the other hand, there's what he actually knows. What he's known since the first time you were together in that specific way that doesn't happen with other people. The knowing that doesn't go away no matter how many alternate explanations he constructs. The way your absence creates a shape in his life that nothing else fills. The fact that when he's genuinely honest with himself, in the moments between the strategy and the narrative, what he feels about you doesn't fit into the category of something he's moved past. Those two things can't both be true. And right now, with the Aquarius stellium activating the collective field of invisible knowing, with Mars entering this gathering and charging the frequency, the dissonance is louder than usual. The story is harder to hold against what he actually knows. This doesn't resolve cleanly or quickly. Cognitive dissonance doesn't just dissolve in a day. But there's a specific thing that happens when the dissonance gets loud enough and can no longer be smoothed over by the usual distractions. A person starts making different choices, not dramatic choices, small ones, the micro decisions that shift the direction of a larger movement so gradually that they can be rationalized as nothing until suddenly they can't be. He may reach out in the next few days. He may not. What's significant isn't the specific action, but the internal rearrangement that's happening underneath it. The story that held the wall in place is cracking, not all at once, but at the seam where two contradictory truths have been pressed together for too long. The stellium, particularly Mercury in Aquarius, amplifying the collective channel of knowing, is making his own inner truth harder to talk himself out of. And that's the real movement. That's what matters beneath the surface right now. There's a Jungian concept that maps almost precisely to what the divine masculine is navigating in this moment, and it's worth understanding because it changes how you read his behavior, and it changes how you hold the space. Carl Jung described the individuation process as the work of becoming a whole self rather than a divided one. Not the work of being perfect or resolved or without shadow, but the work of integrating the parts of yourself that have been split off, rejected, suppressed, the parts that carry too much charge to be easily held. The goal of individuation isn't happiness in a surface sense. It's wholeness, the capacity to be genuinely, fully, unreservedly oneself. The divine masculine in a twin flame dynamic is, in many cases, mid-individuation. He's not unconscious. He's not without awareness. He may be quite psychologically sophisticated in some areas of his life. But the specific confrontation that this connection demands of him, the confrontation with the part of himself that is capable of genuine emotional intimacy, of vulnerability, of needing someone in a way that can't be managed into safety, that confrontation is where his process has stalled. Jung said that whatever we refuse to make conscious in ourselves becomes our fate. It shows up again and again in our external life until we finally bring it inside and do the interior work. For the divine masculine, what he's refused to bring into consciousness is the depth of his own relational need. The fact that he is not actually fine alone. The fact that what he feels about you is not a weakness to be overcome, but a truth about his own capacity for love that has been waiting, sometimes for decades, to finally be acknowledged. The twin flame dynamic forces this confrontation specifically because the intensity of the connection makes it impossible to dismiss the feeling entirely. He can dismiss other relationships. He can genuinely detach from other people because the feeling wasn't strong enough to survive his defenses. This feeling is. And that survival, the fact that it's still here, still present, still registering in his body and his dreams in the peripheral moments of his life, is the individuation process demanding to be completed. What the Aquarius stellium is doing today, particularly with Mercury transmitting through the collective intelligence of this sign, is amplifying the signal of that demand. The part of him that knows, at the level of soul rather than strategy, is speaking louder. The individuation process is accelerating. This doesn't look like a sudden transformation. It looks like restlessness, like a low-grade discomfort he can't locate. Like thinking about you in the middle of something completely unrelated and not being able to fully redirect. Like a question forming that he hasn't yet decided to answer. The exterior is still. The interior is anything but. And here is the thing about individuation that matters most for how you hold this. You cannot do it for him. You cannot complete his process by the quality of your love or the depth of your patience or the perfection of your own healing. His individuation belongs to him. Your job is not to facilitate it from the outside. Your job is to be in your own process so fully that you're genuinely unavailable to wait for his. That sounds harder than it is once you understand that your own individuation, your own becoming whole, is what makes you recognizable to him at the level where recognition actually changes things. There's a distinction that's rarely discussed in twin flame content and deserves direct examination because it carries a kind of freedom inside it that nothing else does. The distinction between limerence and mature love. Limerence is a psychological state first described by Dorothy Tenev in the 1970s. It's the state of involuntary, obsessive romantic attraction characterized by intrusive thinking, the constant mental return to the person, a desperate need for reciprocation, intense fear of rejection, and the elevation of the person to a kind of idealized status where their positive qualities are amplified and their ordinary qualities are filtered out. Limerence feels like love. It has the same physical signatures: the chest constriction, the heightened awareness, the sense of significance around the other person. But limerence is not love in the mature sense. It's more precisely an altered state, one where the nervous system is flooded with the neurochemistry of anticipation and longing, and where the cognitive function of the prefrontal cortex is partially hijacked by that flood. The intrusive thinking, the inability to fully redirect, the emotional weather that tracks entirely to the other person's perceived availability, these are not signs of the depth of love. They're signs of the chemistry of limerence. This matters because the twin flame journey almost always begins in limerence. The intensity of the soul recognition, the strength of the initial pull, the way this person seems to occupy a uniquely significant position in your psyche, all of that activates the limerent response. And the separation phase, with its combination of genuine connection and unavailability, is precisely the conditions under which limerence deepens rather than resolves. Limerence feeds on uncertainty, on the alternation between closeness and distance, on the push-pull. The connection is real, but the experience of the connection has become limerent, which means it has become, in part, a neurochemical state you're in, rather than simply a person you love. Mature love is different in texture. Mature love is not less intense, but it's less intrusive. It doesn't hijack the prefrontal cortex. It coexists with a functioning, directed, present-tense life rather than existing in opposition to one. Mature love can hold someone in the heart without requiring the mind to circle them constantly. It can want reunion without making the absence of reunion into a crisis that has to be managed hour by hour. It can know the connection is real without needing constant evidence of the knowing. The Aquarius stellium, particularly with Venus in this sign having moved out of the oceanic, boundary-dissolving energy of Pisces, is asking your love for this person to mature. Not to become smaller, not to become indifferent, but to move from the limerent register, where the love is partly a state you're in, into the mature register, where the love is something you carry cleanly alongside a fully operational life. Mars entering Aquarius today, giving this stellium its spine and direction, is the specific invitation to that shift. Mars doesn't coexist easily with limerence. Mars requires a self, a direction, a capacity to want and move toward rather than just feel and wait. Mars in Aquarius, in this gathering, is asking the love you carry to grow up, to stop being something that happens to you and start being something you choose, from a centered, directed, fully alive place. That shift is available today, not as a concept, but as an actual energetic threshold you can cross. The way it feels is subtle. It feels like caring about him without organizing your day around the thoughts of him. It feels like wanting reunion without the wanting being the loudest thing in the room. It feels like the love being present and real without the love being the evidence you use to evaluate whether you're okay. You're okay, the love is real. Both of those things can be simultaneously true without the love needing to be managed as a source of instability. That's the mature version. That's what Mars in Aquarius is asking you to inhabit today. 3 days from now, Mercury goes retrograde in Aquarius. February 26th. This timing, coming immediately after Mars completes the stellium, is not incidental. It's the sky asking you to pay close attention to what the next 3 days reveal before the review period begins. Mercury retrograde periods and twin flame connections have a specific reputation, usually around unexpected contact, the return of old communications, the resurfacing of things that were left unresolved. That reputation exists for a reason. When Mercury reverses course, the river of communication and thought turns back on itself. What has been moving forward begins to recycle, and things that weren't fully processed Conversations that were left incomplete. Realizations that were half-formed come back around for completion. But the more significant effect of Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, for your connection specifically, is internal. Mercury governs the mind. When it retrogrades, the mind is asked to do something it usually resists. Go back. Revisit. Reconsider. And in a twin flame dynamic, where so much of the work is the reconsideration of old patterns and inherited beliefs about love and self-worth, and what connection is supposed to feel like, a Mercury retrograde in the sign of collective knowing is potentially a very clarifying period. What you understand about this connection in the next 3 days, what becomes visible in the amplified field of the stellium before Mercury turns, is worth holding carefully, because it's the material that the retrograde period will ask you to integrate more deeply. For him, Mercury retrograde in Aquarius often activates the exact mechanism that his defenses work hardest to suppress: reconsideration. He doesn't let himself reconsider easily. Reconsideration requires admitting that a previous position might have been incomplete, and that admission is threatening to the self-concept he's maintained. But Mercury retrograde doesn't ask permission. It creates the conditions for reconsideration whether or not the person chooses it consciously. The mind turns back. The thoughts that were successfully redirected find their way back through. The question that was suppressed resurfaces. This is relevant because whatever shift is happening in him under today's Mars ingress and the amplified stellium field is going to have a review period, a space in which his own mind, without external pressure, revisits the question of this connection and what he actually understands about it. The next 3 days, while the stellium is still fully intact and Mercury is still direct, are the peak of clarity for this period. Use them well, not to reach out, not to make moves based on what you hope he's thinking, but to get clear yourself, to know your own mind, to understand, with the kind of honest precision that mature love requires, what you actually want from this connection and what you're actually willing to build. Because when Mercury goes retrograde and the review period begins, you want to already know your own answer. The work of reconsideration is most useful when your reconsideration from a solid foundation, not from a question mark. Practical guidance under this transit requires distinguishing between what the energy looks like versus what it feels like to follow it. The Mars in Aquarius energy looks like action. It looks like motion, like doing something, like taking steps. And there's a version of responding to that energy that is just urgency dressed up in the language of readiness. Reaching out because the charge feels like a sign. Making contact because the field feels active. Interpreting the electricity as instruction. That's not what this transit is asking. Mars in Aquarius is principled action, not reactive action. The distinction is in the source. Is the action coming from a clear place inside you, from something you know about what you want and what you're building, from genuine self-direction, or is it coming from the pressure of the feeling, from the discomfort of the not knowing, from the temporary relief that contact would provide? Mars in Aquarius can tell the difference. And more importantly, the field between you can tell the difference. Action from clarity reaches him differently than action from urgency. One creates space, the other creates pressure. And pressure, in a connection with someone whose primary relational defense is avoidance, is the single thing most likely to activate withdrawal at precisely the moment when something genuine might otherwise move. So what does the principled action of this transit actually look like for you today? It looks like taking one concrete step toward the life you're building. One thing that belongs entirely to you, not to the management of the connection. A conversation with someone who lights up a part of your mind. An hour of work on something you've been deferring. A decision you've been sitting on that doesn't require him to be present for you to make. A small commitment to the version of your life that exists whether or not reunion happens on any particular timeline. It looks like letting the Aquarius frequency, this collective signal of connection across distance, carry your actual self, your alive, in motion. Genuinely engaged with her own life self, into the field. not as a strategy, as a natural consequence of actually being that person. It looks like noticing when the charge of the stellium pulls you toward anxious action and choosing, deliberately and with the Mars in Aquarius precision that's available right now, to redirect that charge into something that builds rather than seeks. It looks like trusting that the gathering is real. 4 planets speaking in the same frequency about the same thing. The invisible threads of Aquarius carrying your signal clearly. His cognitive dissonance doing its quiet, necessary work. Mercury about to create the review period where everything becomes more deliberate. You don't have to force anything into form today. The gathering is already doing something. Your job is to be present in your own life, fully and without apology, so that what the gathering is broadcasting has something genuinely alive to carry. One more thing about the Venus-Jupiter trine that's also active today. Venus in Aquarius is making a harmonious contact with Jupiter, currently retrograde in Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer is the energy of emotional abundance, of genuine nourishment, of the heart expanded by belonging. The trine between Venus in Aquarius and Jupiter in Cancer is a grace note under all of this electricity. It's the reminder that the goal of all of this, the stellium, the Mars ingress, the Mercury retrograde about to begin, is not intensity for its own sake. It's not pressure. It's not forcing. The goal is love that is both free and full. Love that is both clear-eyed and warm. Love that can exist in the collective field of Aquarius, that can span the distance, that can hold the connection across the silence, and that can also be genuinely, abundantly, expansively present in the life you're living right now. The Venus-Jupiter trine says you're allowed to feel good. You're allowed to be happy in the life you're in while also wanting more. You're allowed to be full while also being open. The love doesn't have to be synonymous with the ache. It can be something warmer and more inhabitable than that. Today is offering you exactly that. If you want to track what's actually shifting in you during a period like this one, I made something specifically for that. It's called the Twin Flame Journey Tracker and Progress Workbook. Here's why it matters right now. The stellium is amplifying your field. What you're holding energetically, what you're broadcasting, is reaching him with unusual clarity. But it's almost impossible to know what you're actually holding when the days blur together and the shifts feel invisible. When you can't see your own progress, the mind defaults to a story that nothing is moving. And that story is its own kind of frequency. The workbook makes the invisible visible. There's a stage tracker so you can see where you actually are in this journey, not where the fear says you are. A synchronicity log so the patterns stop feeling random and start revealing themselves as what they actually are, consistent, directed, specific to you. Monthly review sections that show you the distance you've traveled. Daily self-love check-ins that keep you honest about what you're actually building versus what you're waiting for. Under the stellium, with Mars asking you to move from feeling into direction, this is the kind of tool that changes what you're broadcasting, not by performing something different, by actually knowing yourself more clearly. The link is in the description. The stellium completes. 4 planets and 1 sign, speaking in unison about connection, clarity, and the kind of love that doesn't require proximity to be real. And at the center of that gathering, your connection, not as a metaphor, not as spiritual comfort, as the actual thing that's being activated in this field. The invisible threads of Aquarius are real. The cognitive dissonance in him is real. The charge you felt in the air this morning before you had any words for it is real. The question the stellium puts to you is not whether the connection is real. You already know that. The question is what version of yourself you're bringing into the field that the stellium is amplifying right now. Are you broadcasting from the ache, from the urgency, from the waiting? Or are you beginning, even in small ways, to broadcast from the clarity, from the aliveness, from the person who loves him fully and also has somewhere to be? Mars in Aquarius completes the picture today. It gives the stellium a spine. It gives the love a direction beyond the longing. It invites you out of the limerent register, where the love is partly a state you're lost in, and into the mature register, where the love is something you carry with you while you move. He is not gone from your field. He is, if anything, more present in it right now than he's been in weeks. The cognitive dissonance is doing its work. The individuation process is pressing on him in ways he can feel but can't explain. Mercury is about to turn back and ask him to reconsider what he's been certain about. And you, right now, today, have the chance to be the frequency he encounters in that reconsidering. Not the frequency of waiting and needing and hoping. The frequency of a woman who knows the connection is real, who loves him genuinely and without desperation, and who has somewhere to go regardless of his timeline. That is the most powerful thing you can put into the field today. 4 planets gathered. The center of that gathering is you, and the love you're learning to carry differently. Not smaller, not less real, but cleaner, more alive, more genuinely, fully, unshakably yours. That's what this stellium is for. That's what today is asking you to step into. Step in.